Good morning, this is Todd Hubbs, agriculture economist at the University of Illinois. Today I'm talking about my weekly outlook from February 25th, 2019, tracking the pace of soybean consumption. Here in the end of February, we finally got a lot of reports in to give us an idea of where soybean crush and exports are. And I thought it might be useful to look at where we're at and what kind of pace we're on for soybean use. The recent developments in trade negotiations with China has provided some support. And the idea that we could see maybe that 910 million bushel ending stocks come down this year, is a distinct possibility. I think the notion that this is going to have to come from exports is pretty obvious, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. When we think about soybean crush this marketing year, we've been off to a really strong start. We've got the crush numbers through December, and that put us at a total crush of 714 million bushels. We got the NOPA crush numbers from January. I tried to do a little calculation to figure out where we would be through January, and I have it at 896 million bushels, which is quite a bit higher than what we did last year. Currently, the USDA projects 2.09 billion bushels of soybean used for crush, so we would need about 1.19 billion bushels crushed over the last 7 months of the marketing year here at the USDA projection. That would only be 15 million bushels less than what we did last year from February to August. Can we do that? I think it's feasible. Now, while we have seen the crush margin shrink a little bit from the highs we saw last year after the Argentine production shortfall, I think we're seeing increased crush capacity in the U.S. and strong domestic demand is a distinct possibility. So the idea that we could hit that 2.09 billion bushels is not a bad idea. Will we exceed it by any large margin? I don't think so. Which sort of puts us back to the idea that if we're going to lower ending stocks this year, it's going to come from exports. So when we think about soybean exports, we can't think about it without thinking about the trade dispute with China, which has been a big player in our soybean export markets this year. What you're seeing here is total commitments through week 24, which ends February 14th for the last two marketing years. And as you can see, the change from China has been drastic. We've picked up EU markets. We've picked up more in places like Egypt and Pakistan. But overall, some of our major exporters are pretty much on pace with what we normally see. The big question is, how many of these guys have already bought forward a lot of the beans they're going to need this year with the expectation of a trade resolution? I think that's probably the case with some of our major buyers. Maybe not with Japan, but for sure with Mexico and some of the other places. So if we're going to see exports exceed the current USDA projection of 1.875 billion bushels, it definitely probably is going to come from China. And then moving through with their commitment to buy and take what they said, which requires a trade resolution. Through February 24th, we have export inspections, and they totaled about, I think, 940 million bushels when you take into account the difference between export inspections and Census Bureau, which puts us needing 934 million bushels for the rest of the marketing year. As of this report, February 14th, outstanding sales were 495 million bushels. So if China does come through with their 10 million metric ton buy like they promised this weekend, that would put us at 862 million bushels, which is not far from the 934 million bushels necessary to hit the USDA projection. So if this trade deal does go through, the potential for exceeding the current export projection is quite strong. The question is by how much. I think we're on pace for record ending stocks regardless of what happens in the trade space. But if we do see the trade resolution come into effect and we don't see the kind of acreage that I'm starting to worry about for soybeans this year, we may see higher acreage than possible. We could see some support for soybean prices. So we're definitely on pace right now to meet the USDA projections in crush, and we have the potential to exceed the USDA projections in exports depending on what happens with China. Having said all that, I think it might be prudent at this time to consider marketing some old and new crop soybeans if you already haven't done so far this year. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the trade negotiations, and it looks like some kind of resolution may materialize around the March Prospective Plannings Report. I'm starting to get a little worried about what kind of acreage and soybeans we're going to put in, which could be very bearish at the end of March if the trade deal doesn't materialize. And I'll believe it when I see it, folks. This could be very negative for soybean prices this spring. Having said that, I still think we're going to carry out record ending stocks, but that number could be 150 to 200 million bushels lower than what the USDA is currently projecting if things work our way. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time. You can find my weekly outlook and daily analysis of issues related to Corn Belt farm economics at farm.daily.illinois.edu. I look forward to seeing you around the state of Illinois.